still looks in the way.
My head?
Yeah, it looks like you're right between my leg and there. That's it.
going to be the start of a several-part series where we explore interior hip or groin pain in the young athletic person. So I see this all the time in people that are weightlifters, they're runners. I treat a lot of professional ballet dancers, and a lot of them end up with a lot of interior hip pain, you know, kind of a pinching or maybe a sharp pain sometimes in the front of the hip. Usually it starts out as a feeling of tightness, maybe a feeling of pinching or compression at the bottom of a squat, or if you're a dancer during what's called a développé, where the leg lifts up and comes out, or maybe during the high kicks. Some of that sort of stuff creates some anterior hip pain. So the first thing everybody does is immediately try to stretch the heck out of their hip flexors. So that's myth number one. And in the follow-up videos, we're going to talk about some ways to go about helping this anterior hip pain. And none of them involve actually stretching the hip flexors, because there's a high likelihood that your hip flexors are not tight and they're not the cause of this problem. So stay tuned for the next part of this video. This is problem number one that I see with this anterior hip or groin pain. Is problem number two. The reason that these are problems is because usually, more often than not, this anterior hip and groin pain could actually be a compressive insertional hip flexor tendinopathy. So right where the hip flexor goes over the anterior rim of the pubis and actually attaches into the lesser trochanter on the femur, they're actually getting a fold over or compressive mechanism. So stretching the hip flexor is actually facilitating that mechanism, and then rolling on it on a ball, lacrosse ball, foam roller, isn't actually going to get down to the hip flexor tendon. It might give you some temporary relief, but that's more diffuse noxious inhibitory control, and that's not actually going to address the cause of this problem. In the last part of this video series, we talked about some reasons why some of the common interventions you see for anterior hip and groin pain aren't the best. Now let's look at some of the things that can happen at the bottom of a squat that could lead to some of that anterior hip pinching, and then some things that we can do to help that out.
Yeah, put it back in the forklift when you guys picked it up that day. No worries. Thanks, sir. Bye.
Travis Pollen here for FitnessPollinator.com. I want to talk to you guys today about the one-leg stiff-legged deadlift. It's a great exercise for building your hamstrings, but the mistake that I see people make is that they tend to treat it as a balancing exercise. So if you're going to do it in warm-up, you can feel free to treat it as a balancing exercise. You'll stand on one leg, reach the other leg back as you reach your arms forward so you feel a good stretch in your hamstrings, and then come up, either touching the foot down on the ground or not. But if you're going to use it as a strengthening exercise, what I recommend is to have something nearby like a bench or a squat rack or your kitchen counter just to put your fingers on to let your body know where you are in space. So here's what that would look like. Note that I'm not using the bench to push myself up. I just have my fingers resting on it lightly. And here's what that would look like from the side. So I'm keeping my back toes down to keep my hips square to the floor, and I'm keeping my shoulder packed. Holy crap, do I feel that in my hamstrings. Give it a try and let me know what you think.
Do you need better mobility for your sumo deadlift? That's what we're working on tonight, and we're going to do it with a drill called the horse stance. So for this, we're going to take a Y-based stance. We're going to push our knees out, and we're going to sink down as far as we can, keeping a straight spine. And here we're just going to hold. We're going to start at about 30-second holds and work our way all the way up to be able to do 1-minute holds. And that's where you're really going to feel a burn in this. Do about 3 to 5 sets with breaks in between. Now, when we're down here, we're thinking about driving our knees out the whole time, using our glutes to pull this groin open. And you're just going to try and sink a little bit deeper as you get more comfortable here. So we're improving the mobility here, but we're also building strength in this position. So we're going to have a really good carryover to that sumo deadlift. That's why it's one of my favorite drills for good transference to that movement. So improve that mobility, improve that strength, and see your sumo deadlift go up.